Big Mike here with
Hayes Entertainment.
Today's episode. We got San Francisco 49ers legend, three-time Super Bowl champion, Randy Cross. The guy played guard, the guy played center.
If you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button.
Hi, this is Randy Cross, three-time Super Bowl champion with the San Francisco 49ers. Been in broadcasting a long time, and it's great to join these guys that I only touch greatness.
Looking for the most beers on tap, great steaks, great staff? Head over to the John B. Pub.
We got the best beers, steaks, chicken wings, nachos in town. Come see us at the John B. Pub.
The John B. Pub, the best bar in town. Come sign up for our football pool. Say Hayes sent you.
The #1 sports podcast in Vancouver with Ryan Hayes and Big Mike.
Ryan Hayes and Big Mike. I Only Touch Greatness podcast.
I'm tired of us Spinners getting no recognition. I played 13 seasons in front of millions of fans, made All-Pro twice, and started in 3 Super Bowls. Yet no one knows who I am. Hey, even if I'm not well known, at least my peer is. Miller Lite. An All-Pro Center doesn't want some watered-down version of a regular beer. I want the less-filling beer that tastes great.
This is I Only Touch Greatness podcast with Ryan Hayes and Big Mike.
And Randy's still cold from his on-the-field performance back at 11 o'clock in the morning.
But, you know, this game in general, you looked at Miami, and we mentioned during the game they never had a doubt, it seemed, that they were going to win. And somehow, again, Kansas City loses from the front.
Hey, there he is.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. The legend, Randy. Thank you very much for taking the time for us today. We really appreciate it.
No problem at all.
I'm Ryan, by the way. With all the Seahawks stuff, don't hate on that. I know. And Big Mike, with me.
They started my rookie year.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm a Bengals fan, so and I'm a fan of yours, though. Don't worry. Even though you beat us 2 times in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Most Bengal fans don't say that. Yeah.
And Ryan was a 49ers fan, but then he broke his ankles when the Seahawks won that Super Bowl a couple of years ago and jumped on the bandwagon.
No. I was always a 49ers fan growing up, big Montana fan. But it wasn't until I could start afford to go to Seahawks games that I started going to and all the games I started going to were always 49ers versus Seahawks in Seattle. And then I got another game, and slowly I became a Seahawks fan.
Good for you. No, that's great. That's how it happens.
Yeah. Exactly.
So Randy, can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and when you started playing football?
I grew up in LA. I was actually born in New York, Mount Sinai Hospital. We lived in Brooklyn. My dad was an actor. Back then, TV was basically based in New York. And when it sort of switched over in about 58, 59, we moved to LA. I grew up, basically, that's all that I really remember is the LA part of my life. But it was great. It was a fun place to grow up. Ended up going to UCLA. But not for any other reason than I grew up a UCLA fan. I got offered by a lot of other schools, but I just decided to go to UCLA. Okay,
and I got a note here that you're a high school shot put champ, and you beat WWF Jim Neidhart, the late.
Jim Neidhart.
Yeah, Neidhart went to a high school. Well, actually, at first he was at a place called Narbonne High School. Then he transferred over to a place that had a string of really good shot putters. It was called Newport Harbor High. And Terry Albritton was a guy I beat for the state. And 2 years later, he set the world record with a 16-pound shot as a 20-year-old. And then Neidhart came in the next year. He won everything. I think he threw it about 70 feet. He was really good, but then he started wrestling a good while later. It's funny turning the TV on and seeing this guy and say, I think I know him.
Yeah.
All of a sudden the guys, wrestling, it's all a gig. It's all a gimmick. Everybody's got to have their little thing. And he was the anvil. He was a crazy guy. So no, it was good. It was really fun.
He was wearing a lot of pink.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, with our good Canadian Bret Hart.
Yes. Yep. All those guys. In fact, one of the guys that I played with at the 49ers, we were drafted the first year or the same year in 76. He was an offensive lineman out of West Texas State, which is now just West Texas, I believe. Or University of Texas wherever, Amarillo but he grew up in Texas, was a huge wrestling fan. And one of his old neighbors was Terry Funk.
Yeah.
I don't know if that name sounds familiar, but so every time the WWF back then came to town, John would have tickets. Terry had always set us up. And so after the matches, we'd usually go out and get a beer and it could be Terry and Hogan and Andre and Savage and all those guys. That was even before Neidhart was with pro wrestling. Okay. But yeah, that's sort of my wrestling story. I don't have much of them, but
it's a good one. Those guys are all legends, that's for sure, in wrestling.
Oh yeah.
At UCLA, playing for the Bruins, why did you choose there? And tell us a little bit about your college experience.
Well, I chose UCLA, like I said earlier. I was a lifelong UCLA fan, whether it was football or football or basketball. Well, basketball was easy because, counting my 4 years in college, the Bruins won 10 out of 12 NCAA titles. So being a UCLA fan was kind of simple. But that was fun. And UCLA football, they played a Rose Bowl against Michigan State in New Year's of 67, January 1st, 67. It's a 66 team, I think. Gary Beeman was the quarterback. Terry Donahue, who would later be my offensive line coach, and then after that would be the head coach for 20-something years at UCLA. And I think that he's their all-time winningest coach. He was a defensive tackle along with my high school coach. So that's one of the reasons UCLA also got kind of a lead, because he was at Kansas with Pepper Rogers. And my sophomore and freshman year, it was the freshman year after at spring football. He came and visited Steve Butler, his buddy, and Steve introduced him to me, and he looked at some of the tape and all that. And that's when I started getting recruited by UCLA, and I ended up going there. I got offered by UCLA, SC, Texas, LSU, Notre Dame, Nebraska. Nebraska
all
had
big
just
schools.
Nebraska had just won the title, and Stanford had just won. It was in the process, I think, right around then of winning back-to-back Rose Bowls over Ohio State with Plunkett and then Dan Bunce at quarterback. So Stanford was pretty doggone good. And I actually got accepted to Stanford, but I ended up, going to UCLA. SC was never really in the mix.
And you still got your Rose Bowl. What was that like?
Yeah. Oh, that was cool. That was very cool. Because football was different then, especially college football. My freshman year was the first year that freshmen were eligible. And we played SC my freshman year, and we were 9-1. They were 10-0, and they beat us. So they were 11-0. They went on to be undefeated. They beat Ohio State in the Rose Bowl and won the national championship. So we finished 9-2. We couldn't go to a bowl game because back then, if you didn't win your conference, you didn't go to a bowl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They didn't start that till I think the year or 2 years after I left college, where other teams got to go to bowl games. Now they've lost their mind. Now there's way too many teams. Yeah. If you aspire to what, like 7-7, or what is it nowadays, 5-7 or 6-6 in college. You go to a bowl game, and that to me that's asinine. That's kind of failing up.
I agree.
But the Rose Bowl was very, very cool. We had played Ohio State earlier in the year, like the second game of the year, and they beat us like a rented mule. I think it was like, I don't know, 42-17 or 42-20 or something. And they were about a 20-point favorite in the Rose Bowl. And, we ended up beating them. It was a huge, needless to say, it was a huge upset. They had Archie Griffin was their running back, 1-year-old Bengals.
Yeah.
He was back-to-back Heisman Trophy winner. They had talent out the wazoo. I think on that team, probably, maybe at least 5 guys on each side of the ball. So about 10 guys played pro ball. It was pretty scary. They were very, very good. But we returned the favor. We beat them, I think, 24-10. It was very, very cool getting to do that. It was to that point, that was the highlight of my football career, getting to actually go to a Rose Bowl and winning it.
Other than football, what were some of your hobbies?
Well, growing up, I was a baseball guy. I played baseball all the time, constantly. Didn't really play football until the 9th grade. And the only reason I played football was my dad wanted me to go to this Catholic all-boys school. And I was less than excited about that, but didn't look like I was getting a choice. So he told me, I said, hey, look, I don't know anybody at this school. I mean, nobody. And he says, well, if you want to meet people, go out for football. There's only, there were only like 400 kids in the school to start with. And in the freshman class, more than half the freshman class was playing football. So you had like 60 guys. So, his whole thing was, you're going to meet most of the freshman class playing football. So at least it'll make going to school easier. I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. So when I first started in the 9th grade, I went out for quarterback. And I was like the second team quarterback. And I was in the process of growing quite a bit. I came in my freshman year, I was 5'8", about 170 pounds. So I was a little chunky. I was shopping in the old Husky section back then. But by the end of the 9th grade, I was 6'1". So I went from 5'8" to 6'1" in one grade, actually in about 6 months. Yeah, I don't recommend it. It's not good on your knees and your back, and you spend a lot of time on a heating pad trying to feel better. But yeah, so as I grew, and a lot of it happened early in that year during football season, coach moved me to offensive tackle and defensive end. And I didn't like offense at all. I was like, if I couldn't play quarterback, I didn't want to play offense. So I played defense mainly in college.
Okay.
Yeah, I went both ways my junior year, but my senior year, the head coach goes, well, do you want to go both ways again? Because we got a really good player. Your buddy is a real good friend of mine, Keith Eck. And I said, no, I don't like playing offense. Plus it's tiring after running around the whole time on defense. Having to play offense is out of control. So I said, nope. And so Keith played offense and I played defense. And it's funny though, if you talk to college coaches or you talk to a lot of players, especially guys that were offensive linemen, it's amazing how many were defensive linemen or defensive players in high school and didn't play offense.
Yeah, because you were an All-American at guard and at center. So that's pretty impressive with the transition, because you don't see a lot of people do that these days.
No, we had probably the most unusual. I still haven't seen another team do it. We had 9 guys that were pretty good. Of those 9 guys, I think 7 of us played at some point in the NFL. Preseason, regular season, training camps, whatever. So it was a pretty talented group of guys. And we'd have the first line would play the first two series. And on that, I was the right guard. And then the second line had come in and I was the center on that line. And it wasn't like we were running, the spread offense, flipping it all over the field. We were running back then, we were running the wing, not the wing tee, the Houston Veer was the name of the offense. We'd had 2 years of the wishbone when Mark Harmon was our quarterback. And then 2 years of the Houston Veer. And that's when I was doing that, going both ways, or, playing both positions. It was, Terry Donahue was one of the best things that ever happened to me in football. He taught me so much. And, he taught me versatility was not a dirty word. Just because you could do more things didn't mean you just wear out earlier. He convinced me to learn how to long snap. So in college, I snapped punts and I snapped field goals and extra points. And I did that for 12 of my 13 years, both those 12 of my 13 years in the pros. So I wasn't getting any of that long snapper money to augment my regular money. But yeah, that playing two positions, the whole time was pretty unusual. I think back, plus I did it at a pretty good level. So that's, I'm sure that contributed a little bit as to why I'm in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. And you should be in the NFL Hall of Fame as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you were hosting.
Yeah, I don't get a vote.
Yeah.
If you were hosting a dinner party and you must invite 3 famous people, who would you invite?
Who would I invite? Dead or alive?
Both
Either or.
dead or alive.
Yeah, mostly alive is a little bit harder. But one person I think I would want would be Eddie DeBartolo, our owner.
Okay.
Would be one. I think it'd be interesting to have dinner with Donald Trump, just so you could just grill him and talk to him.
Yeah.
I mean, just a lot of different questions. And entertainer wise, maybe Glenn Fry.
I like it. Those are good choices. Probably your biggest day in your football career to start was 1976 NFL draft day when you got drafted 42nd overall to the 49ers. Can you take me back to that day?
Yeah, it was kind of different. I got and it wasn't anything like today. There wasn't a big stage, and Pete Rozelle wasn't hugging everybody after the draft pick and all that. I was at my parents' house, sitting around the kitchen or the dining area, waiting for the phone to ring. And the phone was an old Pac Bell wall phone with about a 20-foot cord on the speaker, on the handle. So yeah, I got a call late in the first round. Cleveland had a pick, and the line coach at Cleveland had been the coach at Cal State Northridge, which is right by where I grew up in LA. And his name is Rod Humanick. And he gets on the phone and he says, "Randy, Rod Humanick, Cleveland Browns." I went, "Oh, wow." He says, "So what do you think about the chances of being a Cleveland Brown? We got the next pick." And being the impressionable idiot I was, I said, "Cleveland, like Ohio? It snows there a lot, doesn't it?" I'm sorry. I was an LA kid. I'd never really seen much snow at that point. So needless to say, they didn't draft me. They wisely drafted a fullback from Purdue named Mike Pruitt, who played for them about 9 or 10 years. And then the Niners drafted me later in the second round. They had right around the 14th pick or so of the second round. They had traded their first round pick because they had traded for Jim Plunkett. So they didn't have a 1. So they picked me with their 2. And it was cool. I mean, it was a little symmetry. My dad, who had been a U.S. Marine before he was an actor, had been not deployed, but he went out of the Marines at the end of World War II in San Francisco. right about the time the original Niner teams who played in the All-American Conference were playing games at Kezar, and he actually saw some of those. So I had grown up, we lived in LA, and he couldn't stand the LA Rams. That was the team I rooted for, but he couldn't stand the Rams because he called them chokers. He says they always lose in the playoffs. Every time they win, 8 games, 9 games, and they lose in the playoffs. And they're going to lose to Green Bay, or they're going to lose to Cleveland, or they're going to lose to somebody in that first round or second round. But he says, bank on it. It's going to happen. He was usually right. But he liked San Francisco just because of that. And he was absolutely ecstatic when I got drafted. And
That's a pretty unique story.
He and my mom drove to every home game my entire career.
Wow.
They made that drive up Highway 5 from LA, between LA and San Francisco, a lot.
Yeah, it's a 3-hour drive, right?
About 6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a healthy drive.
Yeah, that's a long one for sure. And then obviously it was a great decision because 3 Super Bowls. I don't think Cleveland won anything around your career. Does one stick out more than the other? And can you give us a little story about each?
All right. Well, first of all, I'll tell you, I was lucky enough to win those Super Bowls, but I also had a great point of reference because my rookie year we were 8-6. Because back then they had 14 regular season games. And then we were 5-9. And then we had back-to-back 2-14 years. And then we were 6-10. So by the time we were about to win a Super Bowl in January of '82, let's just say I wasn't spoiled. And winning was a great experience. And it's something I knew at that point, I could really get used to. But yeah, it's I've got 3 kids, and picking a favorite Super Bowl is kind of like picking a favorite kid. But I will say, Pontiac Super Bowl 16, that was my first one, and you never forget most of the experiences around that because, like I said, we hadn't won much, but I knew what a damn Super Bowl was, and despite the fact that it was the first indoor Northern City Super Bowl. And there's all kinds of stories about that. Vice President Bush showed up and they had to stop the traffic. So the team buses and most of the fans were almost late getting to the game.
Wow.
But Super Bowl 19, which was in Palo Alto, which until this year, contrary to popular opinion, was the first home Super Bowl because Stanford Stadium was like twice as close to our training facility as Candlestick was. Mm-hmm. So we beat the Dolphins and Dan Marino in that one. That was the best team I played on. And then Super Bowl 23 also against the Bengals. That was my last game. So
yeah, last game and last play to beat us was a touchdown from Montana.
Yeah, 2.
Yeah. To 20
John 82, John Taylor.
Okay, John Taylor. I was close.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the cup from that. There's the cup, the Super Bowl
there
cup.
You go. There you go. And the cornerback was a guy by the name of Lewis Billups, who a couple series before that had an interception like right in his hands on about our 20-yard line. And it just bounced off his hands and he dropped it. And it's like, hell, 20 plays later, he's given up a skinny post to John Taylor for a touchdown in the championship. So, but that was very, very cool. I recommend going out that
way. What do you believe is the greatest challenge facing young athletes these days?
Normalcy.
Yeah, trying to be normal.
Yeah, trying to be normal because you've got the pressure of, parents and community people that if you're good at something, they want you to play that 12 months out of the year. So, for instance, I may have never even touched football when I changed schools. Nowadays, Because, if I played baseball, that means I had travel ball, and I played 12 months out of the year. I'd be committed to baseball, or they're committed to, they're on an AAU team and they're playing basketball 12 months out of the year, or because that's just sort of the way it is between that and social media and, just the general way our society is now in general.
Yeah.
That's
a lot of
that's
it's
the
the
biggest
mental.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge for the young kids now, is just to get some semblance of normalcy.
And then your Miller Lite commercials after you retired, those must have been pretty fun to do.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were a lot of fun. I remember when my agent called me and told me about that. I did them. And I remember doing the first one was in a little bar, not far from Marina Del Rey, not far from the beach, and it was packed. And they had little, they had the lights on, and they had the smoke machines going and all that. And we're on a break, and they're showing some of the clips. And I'm standing behind the director, and he's watching the clips. And I looked, and they had a little font, had my name and a title. It said Randy Cross, former All-Pro center. And I looked at that, and I kind of went, I tapped the guy on the shoulder, and I said, "Hey, not for nothing, I was never All-Pro center. I was a All NFC. I mean, I just not All-Pro. I was never an All-Pro center." And he went, "Huh, really?" Looked over at the ad agency and went, "What are you doing?" And the ad agency guy goes, "Well, you played center and guard, right?" I said, "Yes, I did. I played center and guard." He goes, "You were All-Pro, right?" I said, "Yes, I was All-Pro at guard several times." And he says, "Okay, but you were an All-Pro and you played some center. So All-Pro center." and it's, and you have the same reaction I did. Most people do. I kind of laughed. I went, "Okay, that's cool." But as the years have gone on, I don't care if it's sports radio. I don't care if it's, sports writers doing pieces about something. I'm always referred to as former San Francisco 49er, All-Pro center, Randy Cross. I blame Miller Lite in that commercial for that, because I played 13 years. I played my first 2.5 years at center. Broke my ankle and my wrist the 9th game of my 3rd year. And then I played 9.5 years at guard.
As guard. Yeah.
And my last 1.5 years, I played at center because Fred Coylan, our normal center in '87 during that strike year, blew his knee out. So they put me at center, and Fred didn't come back that well. So they kept me at center in '88, and that's when I retired after that Super Bowl. So yeah, it was, so that's a long answer to a short question.
Absolutely. I like it.
And other than the rings, do you have a favorite piece of memorabilia?
Gosh, I do have something downstairs. I mean, it's kind of unusual. I've got every bowl game jersey I ever played in.
Okay.
So I've got my Rose Bowl jersey. I've got a Pro Bowl jersey. I mean, I didn't put, all of them up there for each one. Just a Pro Bowl jersey. And then I got a 49er jersey. I got a Hula Bowl. I played in the Hula Bowl my senior year. I played in the first Japan Bowl, which I don't know, you probably don't remember that, but they actually played a Japan Bowl for about 10 or 15 years, starting in 1976. And it was a blast. You went to Hawaii, played there. Then those same two teams, generally, almost all of them, maybe a few replacements, you get on a plane Sunday afternoon or so in Honolulu, and you'd fly to Tokyo. And you'd be in Tokyo for a week. It was one of the cooler trips I got to do. It was very, very
super
fun.
unique. Yeah.
If you could pick up and go anywhere right now, where would you go?
If you mean if it was open?
Yeah, if you could travel or where, like if that's what I mean, if you could pick up and go somewhere, where would you go right now?
My favorite place I've been that I've been back to a few times is Tuscany in Italy.
Okay.
I don't know why. I just feel really, really comfortable there. I love it. It's a beautiful,
food.
Yeah, great food.
Like a mom figure.
Great food, great wine. Usually some family and great friends. So it's always a fantastic experience.
Just kind of a random question, but have you ever been to Vancouver, Canada, where we're from?
Yes, I have. Good old Stanley Island and all that. My wife and I went on a cruise.
Yeah.
And it was a 10-day cruise. And we went we started in Vancouver. We flew to Seattle, drove over to Vancouver, started in Vancouver, and went up to Alaska, did the whole glacier thing and all that. And, stopped in Anchorage and did some salmon fishing. And it was very, very nice. It was a lot of fun, and got to see the gardens on Stanley Island.
Stanley Park.
Stanley
Park.
Vancouver Island is where that's where the boat will probably, most of the time, Victoria is where the cruise ship will stop.
Yeah, it was. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was in the other Vancouver,
Washington.
Oh, Vancouver, Washington. Okay.
Yeah, I went salmon fishing outside of Portland.
Oh, right on. That's not far from us.
No, not Portland.
How did you like your broadcasting? We loved watching you.
I liked it. I still like it. I mean, I did 20 years of NFL, and now I've done the last probably 12 or so doing college, which is a great combination for me because Tuesday nights I do Inside College Football, where we do a review and a preview of all the big games. And that's with Adam Zucker and Aaron Taylor, Rick Neuheisel, Brian Jones. It's a great group. We've been together for almost that whole time I've been doing college. And then on the weekends, I'll go and do games. And I do all the Navy home games. And then I also will do, American, maybe the occasional. I do several Mountain West every year, but all kinds of conferences. Don't do SEC. Don't do the regular CBS. They haven't let me do any of the SEC games. Yeah. But I've done some Conference USA and some, up in the middle of the MAC.
Can you give us 3 prospects that we should keep our eyes on going into the NFL draft?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, I'm like everybody else. I study the guys who are going to be in the first couple of rounds. So I'm a huge Penei Sewell fan. The Duck.
He's coming to the Bengals.
Yeah. If the Bengals are smart and don't draft a wide receiver, they don't draft Jamar Chase to go with Joe, then they will draft Penei Sewell.
I think the only reason they would do that to keep Burrow happy, but they did pick out Moss's kid last week from Washington or 2 weeks ago. So that might satisfy him enough. He's got his LSU boy now.
Oh, the tight end?
Yeah.
Last him 2 years ago? Yeah.
And
I like, personally, I'm a big Devontae Smith fan. And normally it's easy to say I like the Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah.
But hell, nobody gives this guy any credit. You talk about wide receivers, and he's mentioned, but it's not like the tip of everybody's tongue. I think people are going to regret, because there are going to be several teams that pass on him. And I think they're really going to regret. Not that Jamar Chase isn't really, really good. And not that some of the other guys aren't really good. It's just, I think he's got a chance to be really, really special, as does his buddy Jalen Waddle, because he also returns kicks. But those two guys, I think I'm sort of a fan of. I like Mac Jones. I was curious after the season. Most people had him ranked as like the 5th or 6th best quarterback. And some still do. If you look around at all the draft, prognosticators, I really hope, after they traded up there, I really hope my old team, the Niners, take him at number 3.
Oh, they got it.
Well, I would think, but the draft. People lose their mind.
Yeah.
They can be totally normal. Trust me, in 20 years of doing the NFL and being in that building at Music City, a lot. Radio City Music Hall. It's crazy. And there's always that pivot point in the draft. It's usually not up high, but some of that happens, like where the number 1 guy is always somebody everybody knows. Then you get a guy that everybody kind of knows, and then you get a guy maybe sometimes at 3 that there's some consensus on, but right in there you get a little wrinkle, and that causes semi-panic. And then you have a few teams that trade up for people that they see, and then usually sometime in the bottom couple of picks of the top 10, somebody does something that just goes totally off the board. I mean, the one I really remember was when Jacksonville drafted a defensive tackle. God, I'm drawing a blank on his name.
I cannot think of who that is.
Polynesian kid. But anyway, they drafted him and with like the 10th or 11th pick. And he was projected to be like the 22nd guy, 23rd guy picked. And suddenly he's getting picked at 10 or 11. And everybody's charts just go in the trash can at that point. And then they just, it's like the rats getting off a sinking ship. They just crawl over each other to try to get up higher to get to that pick. And you'll see some of that. We've had some relative sanity the last few years, and that's been also kind of fun to watch. They haven't gone too crazy when it comes to that.
Us being Canadian, we're excited to see where Chuba ends up, and I don't think he's getting enough love either for the draft.
He's going to end up being a day 2, maybe beginning of day 3, which is a nice way to say 2nd or 3rd round.
Yeah.
But
hopefully Seattle.
But he's done so much. It's crazy to think that he gets discounted like that. But that's pretty typical. But the broadcast stuff, my dad told me when I was in high school that when you get a chance, because we were pretty good, and so the local papers would talk to us and stuff. And he says, "Hey, look, if you get a chance to talk to the media, learn how to talk to the media. And your coach can help you, your athletic director can help you." And so I did. And then when I got to college, same thing, where you become the guy they kind of go to for a quote. And my career in the NFL was augmented by the fact that we fired so many coaches. My rookie year, the guy that drafted me, fired him. Second year, new coach, fired him. Third year, new coach, fired him. Interim coach, fired him. So by the time they hired Bill Walsh in '79, he's my 5th coach going into my 4th year, which, it tended to make you a little skeptical. And if it wasn't, and also, sort of the media, I tell you that to sort of explain this, you become the guy that some of the reporters want to talk to, because for no other reason than you're familiar and they don't know who anybody else is. So you do that. And I got to be pretty good at it. And I started doing some radio stuff in '82. And then I had my own radio show. I was on KCBS in San Francisco, which is a pretty big stick, right after Monday Night Football. I had a 2-hour show from 9 to 11, right after Monday Night Football. So depending on when Monday Night Football ended, if they ended at 9, I had a 2-hour show. Usually I had about an hour and a half show. sometimes if they went to overtime, I'd have about an hour to 45-minute show. But I did that every Monday night during football season. It was a talk show, pure talk, phone-in talk show. And then, so that's about 83, 84. We're still winning. It's going good. And then I started doing my own TV show, local. And then I had a production company through some associates. So I produced my own TV show and did some of the also radio stuff. And I did USFL games when I was in San Francisco towards the end of my career in the off season, because they signed a national deal, the USFL did, but there was a clause in their national deal that every market had to be able to see the games. So the national couldn't like carry 4 games and the other 6, the hell with you just find them somewhere or listen to them on the radio. So you had to have a local station do it. So for the Oakland Invaders, which was the team in the Bay Area, I did the USFL games for a couple of years. And that was the first time I'd ever done color. I worked with a guy named Barry Tompkins. It was a fantastic experience. So it enabled me, though, at the end of the year, I'd finish my football season and I'd get my audition tape for the networks. My agent would get it and they'd edit it up and they'd send it to New York. So they at least knew who you were. Because the West Coast can be a little bit of the witness protection program, as you Seahawk fans can find out when they start voting for MVPs and All Pros and Pro Bowls.
Oh, yeah.
People forget you guys are even in the league. But being on the West Coast can be really tricky that way. So I always sent my tape in every year religiously. So when I retired after Super Bowl 23, I had 3 of them come after me, bring me in for auditions, which was kind of a unique, some stories there too. But so mainly it was CBS and NBC, a little bit of HBO, but inside the NFL, they were just starting that up. But I went with CBS in '89, and I signed a 7-game contract, I think. And I ended up doing. It was 16
done by
games.
Games back then, eh?
Well, no, as a rookie or a new guy, they just weren't sure you'd be able to do it.
Okay.
But I ended up doing a full season because they liked what I did, and it sort of went from there. But yeah, that's how they usually, and that's one of the big misconceptions is that because you're wearing headsets, that you've got people talking to you during a game and telling you stats and stories and all that. Wrong. That doesn't happen that way. You've got to read that stuff. You've got to know those stats. You got to be able to tell those stories after talking to guys. So it's very different. And the thing about broadcasting, and I guess there's several professions I've seen outside of sports that it's like this, but this is something you can learn to do well. But if you're going to be better than just okay, you've got to be kind of born to do it. And having a kind of show business background with my dad being in the business and all that as a kid, I had a pretty healthy ham bone. So, I was adaptable. Plus I had never really shied away from stating my opinion. So that helped too.
That would help for sure.
What do you want to be remembered as?
A winner.
Yeah.
A great player, good dad, good husband, currently a really good grandparent. Got a checklist, but nothing too crazy. Nothing that when it's all said and done, it's gonna be one of the keys that the earth keeps rotating.
Yeah.
Can you give us one good Montana and Rice story, the best combination ever in football?
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing about Joe was from the day he got there, you knew from practice and the way he executed the offense that he was really comfortable and that Bill had a knack for kind of putting him in positions that he was going to be successful. So people figure, hey, 79, he just started playing. Wrong. He didn't. He would plug him in, get in the red zone, or you'd get on the plus side of the field. He'd go in for a throwback pass or a sprint, a little outside pass, or you'd never a drop back pass. It was always something different. There was always something, a reverse or something when Joe was in the game back then. But you knew that it was going to be pretty special. You knew he really was good at what he did. And then once he started playing, and we were playing New Orleans in 1980. Archie Manning, to date myself, was their quarterback.
Okay.
They were ahead 35-7 at the half. And we came back and beat them 38-35. And a lot of that was because of the way Joe played and the plays that he made. And that became sort of the genesis of the whole comeback thing for us. Because that's something people don't understand. They always go, well, you come back, you should come back. Well, if you've never done it, you really don't know how to. But once you get that in your back pocket, you can kind of call back on that time after time. You remember what it's like. I mean, to the point where we'd be in games and we'd be down by, 6 or 10 or 14. You look at the clock and it would say like 6:50. You go, no problem. We can do this. And the hell if we didn't, we would usually come back and beat teams at the end a lot. And that was his MO.
Yeah.
And he was, Joe was very, very confident, wasn't a big smack talker. Though when he did, you noticed, he loved to talk to defensive linemen. He loved to talk to pass rushers and guys like that. But, he was
did
different.
the talking for the most part, probably.
For the most part, but he wasn't shy about talking shit.
Yeah.
We put like we played the Cowboys, and it'd be the end of a play, and he'd throw a ball, and right after he threw the ball, Randy White hits him. And he's on the ground. Joe's on the ground, and he's getting up, and Randy White's standing there, and he goes, "Randy, man, I'll be damned. I didn't even know you were out here." He's just trying to get on guys. We're playing the Cowboys in the championship game in January of '82, and they had said that because we beat them really bad during the regular season. So we meet them in the championship game, and they said the 49ers didn't beat the real Cowboys. And Ed Too Tall Jones had made a statement that, that we didn't beat the real Cowboys, and the Cowboys had zero respect for the 49ers. So first or second possession, we get it. We go down. Joe throws his bullet about that high off the ground that Dwight catches in the end zone for a touchdown. And Joe turns around and runs back about 10, 15 yards where Too Tall stand. And he literally is like poking him in the chest like this. And he says, "Respect that, MFer." Yeah. And Keith Fonhorst, who played right tackle, is grabbing him. And he's going, "Get," and just pulling him away from Too Tall. And Joe's laughing his ass off. And he's pulling him away. And Farney's going, "I don't need you making him any madder." But that was Joe. Joe would do stuff like that. But he's an incredible winner. 4-0 at Super Bowls.
Yeah.
All those touchdowns, never threw an interception in a Super Bowl. To me, he's the greatest ever. And it's not a very popular opinion. But it's just me.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. I'd say it's a coin flip between him and Brady. I think it's very close. I wouldn't say either or, to be honest.
My favorite thing to ask people when they because I get asked that a lot, obviously. I said, well, look, I don't care who you say, but You've got about 50 seconds left. You got the ball on your own 20-yard line. And you got one timeout. You're down by 5. So who do you want a quarterback?
Joe, for sure.
And for me, it was like, that's a stupid question. I mean, of course, my guy. And later on, honestly, I covered a lot of John Elway games at Denver. And it was absolutely ridiculous what he would do on a regular basis. Exactly that. And it was fun to watch because I hadn't seen just nonstop comebacks like that since I had played with Joe. He was also right there with him.
Kind of what Russell Wilson's got.
Russell Wilson, he ought to be able to sue for non-support.
Exactly.
Because since that Super Bowl win, when they let that offensive line fall apart and just, hey, he can, just because he can run doesn't mean he has to.
Yeah. And the Legion of Boom.
That they held the defense together for however long that was.
Yep.
But
we ran the ball.
It's just absolutely crazy. I think it's almost criminal. You look over the last 5 years or so, you could make every year at mid-season, people starting to figure out this damn Russell Wilson is good. And that's when they would start mentioning the MVP phrase.
And that's when he'll drop off.
And then sometime around Halloween, but well before Thanksgiving, they all get him amnesia. And you forget about Russell Wilson. But he's still killing people. I mean, it's crazy what he can do. And there were years, and you're a fan, so I'm thinking back probably 3 or 4 years ago, he was literally beating people by himself.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, and you'd watch it, and you go, oh my God, why isn't this guy just on everybody's lips? And why isn't he endorsing everything in the world? Mm-hmm. How good he is.
Yeah. But what about Kyler Murray? Kyler Murray is kind of the same way, but just not. He's not getting a championship playing in Arizona. He's got to come through Seahawks and 49ers.
Yeah, it's going to be a little tough for him, especially with the talent my Niners have. Hell, they got more talent coming off IR than most people have talent.
Yeah, they do. That's for sure. After last season, for sure. I mean, Bosa's there and Jimmy G.
One guy I think is special there is that Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah. I mean, I was what if in the other day. We were sitting around at CBS because we just got doing a bunch of draft shows, and they're still running on repeats all the rest of this week on CBS Sports Network. But we were talking about that, and I was just in my what if world. I said, what if San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan, a quarterback like Jimmy G, who knows what to do with the ball, the running game they have, that offensive line that now that they've signed those 2 offensive tackles, they're going to be freaking beasts. And the rest of their line is really good. You add Kyle Pitts along with George Kittle and Ayuk and, go down the list of their skill guys. I was sitting there, I just going, okay, I know it's crazy. You guys, people think I'm nuts, but what if they did that? Can you imagine being a defensive coordinator in the NFC West when you got to stop that? You get McVay. Because I guarantee you, LA Rams with Stafford and McVay and all that are going to be really good. Arizona's going to be really good. Seattle's going to be good.
It's usually the toughest division in the whole league for sure.
Yeah, I mean, surviving it and winning it might be as big an accomplishment out there on the West as that it's been in several years.
Yeah, and I kind of see. I almost see Rams at the bottom though. It's hard to say. It's hard to call it, but I just think Stafford. I'm not sold on Stafford.
Yeah. I mean, I live outside of Atlanta now, so I saw Stafford at Georgia.
Oh, okay.
He can flat spin it. He is a really good quarterback. He's got that comeback DNA in him, and watch out for him.
I don't want to chirp the line. I don't want to chirp the
that,
lines too much, but I feel like their coaching's never been that good.
When has it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the advantages some organizations have. Is there are several organizations that just don't get it. The Lions don't get it.
Yeah.
No, they don't. It's just the poor Cleveland Browns haven't gotten it, but they're starting to get more of a clue now.
My Bengals don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, you just look, and if you look at, and everybody looks at rosters or coaches and OCs and DCs and whatnot. I mean, look at the front office. Look at the ownership.
Yeah.
What's that old line from The Godfather? The fish stinks from the head down. Teams stink from the head down. And owners and CEOs and GM, don't let GMs get whacked, but owners and presidents and people like that, they're in the league forever. They're bulletproof. They're usually bulletproof.
And we're actually seeing that in Vancouver right now with our hockey team. The owner doesn't want to fund them very much, not giving the GM money to do anything. They're calling for the head of the GM, but the owner's too pussy to do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, that's my Niners. You know, the York family figured it out, and they have hired people and gotten people in an organization that have made it just light years better than it was. Because there's a reason they were drafting first, second, third, fourth, right in there for a lot of years. During these last 20 years. So yeah, it's you can look around the league, and I tell people all the time that, there's 32 teams, there's 10 or 12 that are good teams and good organizations. And there's probably another 10 or 12 that they're trying. They may get there, but they're trying. And then there's another 10 or so that you look at them and you go, nah, they're not going to do it.
Houston.
I was just going to say Houston might be the worst team in the league.
Houston. Well, the Oilers were the same way until they became the Titans.
And until the Titans were like that.
You look at the second team in the draft this year. They just drafted a can't miss so-called All-American quarterback 2 years ago. And now they're going to draft another quarterback at number 2, the Jets.
Yeah.
No. It's which is really sad, because they've got some incredibly loyal fans up there in the New York area, but they can't play dead.
The one I think about is Trubisky when Chicago moved all the way up to take Trubisky at, I believe it was 10, and then of course Mahomes, Deshaun Watson's there as well.
It's there's always those stories.
They got our sloppy seconds now.
That's my least favorite part of the draft, is after the draft. It comes, before the draft, the cottage industry is speculating picks and speculating talent and all that. The other part of the other cottage industry after the draft is they generate thousands of articles and thousands of pieces on radio and TV about who they should have drafted, who they passed on. And there's a lot of meat on those bones, or there must be, because those articles and those shows and those pieces go for like freaking 3 to 5 years. It's crazy. You listen to that, and how often people go, well, we could have drafted. Just imagine you're a Green Bay Packer fan back in, what was that, 83? Or no, not 83, 89, when they draft Tony Mandarich at number 2. And after that, the rest of the top 5 are Hall of Famers, except for him.
And I think about, then I think of another one, even the 49ers overlooking on Aaron Rodgers. And now,
where did Rodgers go? 24th that year?
Yeah. And
then forever, every year.
Just kills
well, they could have had so and so and so and so and so and so and so. That's it.
Yeah.
Hey, Randy, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time for us today. We really appreciate it. We're big fans of yours, and we're continue to be big fans of yours, and it meant a lot to us.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Good luck to you guys and your teams.
If you're looking for a mug, perhaps a hoodie, head on over to IOnlyTouchGreatness.com.
Looking for the most beers on tap, great steaks, great staff? Head over to the John B. Pub.
We got the best beers, steaks, chicken wings, nachos in town. Come see us at the John B. Pub.
The John B. Pub, the best bar in town. Come sign up for our football pool. Say Hayes sent you.